Today happens to be the UNESCO declared day for what? World Creativity and Innovation Day. Okay? And because we know we see these things ahead of time, we decided that our guest for today is going to be a creative.
That was good.
Actor, lawyer, Sybil Collette. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Thank you.
Happy World Creativity and Innovation Day.
I know, right? Happy World Creativity and Innovation Day to you too.
Thank you.
Yes.
You do very many things to fix. You're a fixer in your own field. You're a lawyer. You also act. Different people, you know. And the problem with acting is we know you as a governor, we know you as we know you as a cops, we know you as a bad girl, we know you as. So people are just confused on what character you are representing today. So today you are yourself.
Yes, I am myself.
She's not embodying any one of her characters.
No.
Okay. Leo ni wewe.
Leo ni mimi.
Leo ni Sybil.
Yes.
Okay. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
We fix the nation one conversation at a time.
Yes, amen.
Yeah. Janu, what's the quote for today?
The quote for today, I mentioned earlier it was sent by one of our guests who was here, Dr. Oscar Gidua, a forensic psychologist. And he said, I want to fix the soul of our nation. He's usually at the front lines to offer counseling, especially for victims, survivors of terrorist attacks. So he's done a lot of that work. And over time, he said, I want to fix the soul of the nation. But how do you interpret what the soul of the nation is?
For me, the soul of the nation is the youth.
Is the youth?
Yes. Because for me, they represent what the future could look like. Why I'd place them as the soul of the nation is because that's where the children are aiming to go to. And that's what they'll become probably when they see, because that's their nearest example. And yet, these are the ones who carry the burden to make the changes that maybe their parents or their forefathers did, and they'd like to make the differences. So it's the youth.
That's very powerful.
Wow.
That's very powerful. I know that many people talk about June 25th as maybe the moment when they realized, oh my gosh, young people can actually drive change.
Yeah.
But do you think we are holding them to that same standard, or is it just a matter of as and when they emerge? Do you think we need to do more to hold young people to the standard of saying, you guys are the soul of this nation?
Of course, we need to do more. And I think, like you just said, that was the day that everybody realized, because before that, it looked like it was a joke, until they realized the power that the youth have, and especially with regards to social media and spreading information, digital activism, and everything that they have within their hands. So they look like sometimes silent giants who do not like involving themselves in things to do with politics and all that. But then the moment they get involved, now the government is scared because they do not know what to do, which direction the criticism is going to come from. These people are very aware of what it is that they're saying. So yes.
I like that.
That's a good one. So if you were to fix the soul of the nation, that's fixing the young people of the nation, how would you do it?
For me, I'd improve the creative sector. That's where most of them want to be. This is a generation that is coming from, many times in school, we always used to have the conversations of how you're supposed to work so hard and get to either do this, you know, the 4 jobs, the engineering, law and stuff. And yet this is the generation that has seen social media and many other creative avenues emerge and has embraced that change very well. So I think if you can improve creativity, for lack of a better way, you'll keep them busy. And many of them would want to be busy. The reason they are very active out here and sometimes very angry is because they have worked so hard and there's nothing to show for it. So at least if you'd improve one of the sectors that they actually do enjoy being in, which is the creative sector, then you're really going to fix the soul of the nation. Yeah.
You know, our editorial producer, Dan Mwangi, always comes up with these tags. Look at today's tag, art and crafts. Injecting by the script.
Dan has pocketfuls of them.
So I want to ask you the question, do you practice, well, apart from practicing for the plays, do you practice as a lawyer?
Well, I got admitted to the bar in 2022, so I'm an advocate. I went and did my 6 months sort of like internship at an intellectual property firm. And then I think it's when I was there that I realized, okay, I really need to do more with regards to merging, especially my side of entertainment and then this other side. And so that's where my space where I am right now has come up from.
Because you've become very active on that, on looking at how policy and laws and regulations are shaping the creative sector. And you post videos even on TikTok. Let's play some of them. Just for those who do not know Sybil Collette, this is her. Play 1 or 2 videos.
Have you heard about the Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024? Well, that bill proposes a few things, and amongst them, the most crucial are the fact that, one, they'd like to extend the presidential term, the governor's term, MCA's term, and MP's term from 5 years to 7 years. And then they also want to increase the percentage or the amount of money they give to the county government from 15% to 40%. Amongst other things, these are the most crucial that would really affect, the status of our country as it is right now, the status of the creative economy as it is right now. Because, with the change of government comes a change of policies, or maybe just a fresh start on some stalled projects. And it's very important that everybody gets involved in this process at this particular juncture. So how can we reject this particular bill? Now, there's a public participation hearing forum again on the 25th of October at the Senate chambers. And also, if you can't make it to go in person, just make sure you're writing every day between now and the 25th of October how you're rejecting this bill. And then just send it to the clerk of the Senate. The email addresses I'll post below. And just send, you don't need to do much, just say, I reject this bill. And on the same day, the 25th of October, from 9 a.m., let's show up in numbers so that we can be able to get an opportunity to give our views. Because such a bill, the proper procedure is it will definitely need to go for a referendum. But after several stages of hearing from both, the Senate and also the National Assembly, then now the referendum, because it's a bill that involves the change of the term of office of the president. And so before we get to that stage, let's start with the battle right here before we get to the main one. That is, if it gets to that stage. So as for now, keep posting about it, keep rejecting and writing things about it, keep sharing with everybody that you know about it, and let's just refuse this kind of bill.
There have been recent developments when it comes to state corporations, and as we've seen, the cabinet secretaries and the president have made reforms to several state corporations. And as a creative, you should be very much aware of what reforms affect you and maybe how. Let's start with the corporations that have been merged. Of course, we all know the University Fund and the HELB, which are the most common. But then as a creative, what should you be aware of? Now, the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, the Kenya Industrial Property Institute, which is KIPI, and the Kenya Copyright Board, Kekobo, have been merged. So that they're no longer going to be existing as separate entities. They have now been merged into one state corporation. As a youth, you should be very much aware that Uwezo Fund, the Women Enterprise Fund, and the Youth Enterprise Development Fund have also been merged. So if you have been a beneficiary, please be very aware that those particular institutions have now been merged into one. How they're going to play out.
We're the civic educator.
Do you find it hard to watch yourself back? Or not necessarily?
No, I don't.
I thought I saw you.
No, that was because the volume was
So
too
it's
loud.
loud. No, brilliant. You're such a civic educator.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So that first one was the Senate bill. I was there last year, and you are, creating awareness and sensitizing people. There's this bill, and there's a process now where you can contribute towards the bill, and then this second one, after the cabinet met and the decision that was made on the parastatals that are going to be merged and others that are going to be killed, again, coming to create awareness. Why? Unajipatia kazi yote?
Enyewe, hiyo ni
Tuambie
swali
serikali
very-
tupatie kazi.
Well, kwa nini najipatia hiyo kazi yote? There was a gap that was missing. And I decided that, you know what, since I'm not seeing anybody work so proactively hard in that sector, nitajiweka hapo. And so I realized there was a very big gap between the law and the creatives. because again, there's this assumption that the law doesn't affect everyone, and then there's also that assumption that creatives don't matter. So now when you look at both, having been a beneficiary of both sides, you do realize that people will benefit from this information. And then I just think it's perfect timing, man. I think after June 25th, people realize the country is very sensitive and very politically aware. So that mentality of people won't understand you is gone. So I decided this is the perfect opportunity to come in, because now everybody is alert and is actually ready to listen to things that might affect them from both sides. Yeah.
That's really powerful. I was going to ask you whether you consider yourself an artist or an activist first. Like, which one comes first?
I don't think I'd say activist, I'd say educator more than activism, because what I am doing is creating awareness rather than sometimes maybe just telling people to do a specific thing and stuff like that. I always said if I wasn't an advocate, I'd be a teacher, and I think I'm just doing it one way or another. So I think always growing up and doing both of them, even your parents have that question, sasa utafanya gani? Tunajua umemaliza hii, but sasa hii. And I remember one time I was having a conversation with my mom, and I told her, just trust me, in one way or another they're going to merge. And the day that they will, we are going to all of us see. And so I didn't realize in one way or another when I was doing this that these worlds were both merging. But then yes, I am an actor, I am a creative, and I'm an educator. Yeah.
And I think I remember, you mentioned Muthoni DQ, and I remember when I had her on a panel the other day, she said, I'm an active citizen. Don't hold me as an activist. In fact, she turned to the crowd and said, release me from those shackles.
I'm an active citizen.
I'm an active citizen. Is that kind of also what you're saying? I'm an active citizen who also happens to be an actor, a creative.
Yes.
Right. How have people responded to your videos? What is it that stands out from what people tell you when they hear you educate them?
At first, I was really very scared because I did not think people have the concentration span to listen to a very long video. And I think among my first videos was like 5 minutes. And then my videographer was like, we have to do 1 minute straight to the point because that's the message. And then you actually do realize several times when I meet people and they're like, I know this video of yours. I know this video. You talked about this. You talked about this. Considering the number of followers that I have and the number of feedback that I get, it's like, oh, wow, you guys actually do listen to the videos. And sometimes, people comment and some of them are asking you questions that require you to answer them. And you're like, wow, people are really engaging in this. So especially the feedback that I'm getting from the creative space is very positive with regards to whatever it is that I'm doing.
There's a lot of issues you've highlighted.
Yeah.
What for you right now is the most pressing issue that you think we need to get this right first as we continue to resolve other issues? What issue is that for you?
Policy. That has been the major problem that has been affecting the creative sector. Many people have benefited from it being disorganized because then there's no one to hold accountable. And I think that is the major gap that we have missing. And once we can be able to fix policy, it will be able to place us in a very different pedestal with regards to other industries. And then we can finally get recognized for the worth that we actually have.
So what's up with the policy? Is that we don't have policy, or is it bad policy? Or non-implementable policy?
Insufficient.
Insufficient policy?
Yes, insufficient policies. And I remember like last year, one of the things that sparked that whole video thing that I started is because I attended a public participation forum and we were having a creative economy bill that when it was read from the beginning to the end was so vague, you don't understand exactly how it is going to solve anything. And then you realize that's the gap that is there. The lawmakers actually think, if we just do this, we'll have captured the whole sector. This thing has 7 industries within it that are so huge. It's very impossible for you to capture the needs of that specific industry without really getting into the details of what it entails. And so that was one of the major things that even currently I am very actively involved with a group called the Creative Economy Catalyst Network. We are coming up with our own bill that we're going to put to the public.
I remember there's a time when, and I think he actually did go ahead with it, the MP for Dagoretti South, John Kerry, because he comes from the creative industry and he was very, very big on it, and even sits now in the ICT Committee of Parliament on policy that targets the creative economy. Are you aware of that? Of any policies that he developed?
Not that I'm aware of, or even if they were developed, they haven't gotten to the maturity stage.
In this congamano of yours, are you engaging with such MPs who understand your language?
When you're coming up with a bill, there's a process, and so we are yet to get to the lobbying stage. But then once we get to the lobbying stage, these are some of the people that we are definitely looking to have at a table so that we can be able to be like, okay, this is our bill, and you can have a look at it. And in the event that you feel A, B, C, D can improve or not, you have to tell us right now, because we are answerable to the creatives who have sent us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why have the creatives not been as active as they are now? If you look at other sectors, if you look at lawyers, for example, lawyers have been very active on matters of governance, of national governance.
Yeah.
Even accountants, the same. Engineers would say the same. Well, I keep telling engineers not enough, but yeah, the same. But when it comes to the creative economy, it's like everybody's just doing their own thing. And when it comes to those other, government things, hizo mambo za siasa, watu wa siasa, why?
Because for the longest time, the same way they have always been treated as extracurricular, that's the same way they've always carried themselves as extracurricular. Yani, they've always been a second option. It's like, utakuwa lawyer, but nikishindwa, naeza fanya, instead of looking at it as the number one priority. And the major blessings that came with COVID was the realization that creativity, that the creative economy and the creative sector is one very, very big, wild, and very active industry. And so now when people realize that, because then offices were shut, people aren't going to work, it was either you are watching movies, it was either you are listening to music, watching TikTok, and then now when you start actually seeing role models within those spaces that are doing very good in life, it becomes a very attractive venture. And then that's when we have president coming and saying, oh, unajua watu kama kina Njugusho na make more money. It's the realization that, wait a minute, have we been sleeping on this thing? And I think it was with regard, a big thank you to definitely COVID.
Okay. Even before COVID, the initial Jubilee campaign of 2012, yes. 2012, then the election of 2013, there was a big issue on the creative economy.
Yeah.
In fact, it was a young campaign. It was these guys who were digital versus those other guys who were analog. And the digital guys won. And they said, among the things we're going to do is, of course, have a sharp focus on the creative economy. 5 years, 10 years later,
We still have the same conversations.
yeah. Why?
Because one of the things that has affected us negatively is the fact that we are distributed amongst very different ministries. Sasa, tuko ICT, tuko culture, kuna youth and sports. Sasa, ukiangalia, if all these things are put at the table, if this department feels they don't want to handle this, it's easy to say, ini ya youth and culture, hapana ini ya ICT. Na siku hizi ya watoto wanatumia vitu mingi sana za computer. I think ini ya technology. So, because of that, there is really never one that actually focuses, and that's the problem that has always been there. The more scattered and divided that you are, even amongst ourselves, the harder it is for us to actually get resources channeled into this specific industry.
If you were given a wand and you were told, okay, create a ministry that will focus on creatives and empowering them, what would that setup look like? What would you separate and what would you keep within the same ministry?
You know what I'd do? I'd keep them under the creative economy and separate them into the 7 industries, which is the audiovisual, the audio, we have the new media, and we have the design, we have events. So when you put them under one specific ministry, the Ministry of the Creative Economy, that is in my world, and then now have them focused on the 7 industries that they actually separated into, it is going to be very, very practicable to handle the problems that are facing that particular industry.
Would that be the same ministry that is under youth? Because right now, creative economy is under sports, right?
Yeah.
And then there was culture, which culture then went back to the other side. So would it be youth, sports, creative economy, or would it just be Ministry of Creative Economy? Would there be a different ministry called youth?
For me, I would not.
Or should there be?
I think there should. I think there should. In my world, it would be the Ministry of the Creative Economy. Regardless of whether you're youth, you're a child, you're an old person, anything. That assumption that only the young people are involved in that is what is making the older generation shun the issues that they're actually facing. Because this is vitu zetu ni vitu za vijana.
I actually don't think we need to have a Ministry of Youth in this country.
Because youth is...
Surely...
It's like having a ministry
80% of Kenya is youth.
Yes.
And then you have a ministry for youth.
So that all the ministries solve issues also from a youth perspective, whether it's you know.
Because that's how now you end up having, okay, so now we have a PS called Fikirini Jacobs, who's a PS for youth. You remember your youth? So we need to deal now.
Exactly.
Hii ingine sisi wazee. The wazee are only 5%.
Yeah, I agree. Na akipatiwa hapo sasa kwake anaona youth and sports. Okay, let me first play sports hapa. Hawa youth sijajua nataka nini. Oh, ni social media. Si ICT achukue. Nona. Hizi ni vitu za theater. Si culture. By the end of it all,
it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Have a youth, everything has to integrate young people.
Yeah.
So whether it's agriculture, whether it's Ministry of Gender, whether it's Ministry of whatever it is, just make sure young voices are represented instead of sidelining.
Yeah.
And we also have that blow
Not
up
even
last year.
represented. It's the young people's voice.
But it's also about co-leading. Sybil, how do you feel about co-leading? It has to. We'll answer that after the break.
What do you mean by co-leading?
Co-leading, you know, she's mentioned something that's very accurate. Where Wazez Shan, I think a lot of it comes from a sense of feeling intimidated by the presence and enthusiasm of young people. Everybody's demographic matters, but it's about co-leading. We should be able to lead together. But until that is realized, then we'll always have this push and pull where Wazez feel like we need to own the narrative because they're coming on strong and they almost feel like they're being sidelined. It's like, no, nobody's chasing you unless you're not for progress. If you are,
I am.
You're chasing them.
Yes. Listen, the minority will have, you know that thing that we call tokenism? We'll have affirmative action seats for the old people, not the other way around. Right now, we have affirmative action things for young people.
It should be the other way.
How do we have affirmative action for the majority? It just goes completely contrary to what affirmative action is all about.
I want us to come back and get Sybil's reaction on that. That's a good one, though. Sybil's reaction. We're talking about the creative space. We're talking about Sybil, who's described herself as a teacher, an active citizen, a creative, and has really been able to use her platform to center important critical issues that affect Kenyans. So when we come back, we'll talk more about that. Remember, the hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. Talk to us online as well on what you're fixing from whichever part of the world you are. Janet Bugwa, Eric Latif, Mariam Bishar will be back tomorrow. But for now, Eric and I will be back after this break.
Sybil Collette is still here with us as our guest. Art and craft. Act and craft. Injecting from the work. There are people who have very many, we have very many comments coming in. You can sample some of them.
Lenny says, I remember Sybil from Gigi and others. A great teacher she is. Thank you for letting her share more about herself. She's right. This is behind the scenes. KE says she's right. Mainly policy and governance of institutions in the creative economy needs to be checked. Plano says, amazing work, Sybil. I've enjoyed her videos. You can see from the videos she's driven by passion. Keep up the good work. Thank you, fixers. Joe Mungai from Barney Lake. Hi, Janet and Latif. We want Kenya Moja. We're trying to free ourselves from the shackles of tribalism, only to be trapped in generation this and that talk. So, good feedback there, Sybil. And I don't know whether it's now a good time to mark for us. This is the 10th decade of you acting. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
10 years.
Yes. 10
What's
years.
your biggest takeaway reflection of that journey in 10 years for you?
Oh my God. It has been a very, very tough one, to be honest. It definitely could have been easier with some of these things that we are trying to address right now. But I'm in a good space, man. I've always been consistent. And I thank God that I'm here.
If you were to fix one thing that would have made a journey easier for someone, what would it be?
When it comes to acting?
Yes.
Royalties.
Tell us more about that.
Royalties now, what happens is many times we find ourselves in a position where perhaps you've already shot this particular film or this particular series and you've already been paid a one-time of payment when you're shooting it, and then you see it has been resold to Nigeria, or now it has been resold to Netflix. And so now it might be 3 years later from the date that you actually shot this thing and you get nothing from it. And sometimes one of the biggest challenges we have with regards to our career is the instability that comes with it. There are high seasons, there are low seasons. There are people that are definitely consistent all through the game, and that's okay. But then the major challenge that we have is the ups and down seasons. And if the bad contracts that we already have could be improved with some things like royalties, where you actually give out intellectual property completely for life, could get at least get fixed, then I think it would really help with regards to such things. I meet people who are telling me about a show I did 10 years ago. It would be nice if I could be getting some money off of
You're
it.
still getting something out of it.
Yeah.
So basically, just protecting the IP from the very beginning and staying with it.
Yeah.
But that sounds like something that can just be fixed easily.
Wow. I wish it was.
Huh? So who's in charge of this? Is it Kenya Industrial Properties Institute or Kenya Copyright Board? Or
It depends on the type of work.
That's where you're saying the merging of all these things comes in.
Yeah, it depends on the type of work that you're doing. But then now when you're looking at audiovisual work, especially things to do with film, we have to look at the fact that now is copyright, because there's a script involved. It's sometimes literal works if it's a musical and stuff like that. So Kekobo is in charge of this. But it is the responsibility, obviously, of the producers and the owners to definitely pay for the copyright so that they can be able to own it. Yeah. What you're trying to fight, especially from the position that I mainly am as an actor, is now the gap between me, because there's a producer and there's also the client.
Yeah.
So sometimes the copyright doesn't belong to you. It belongs to these other people, the producer, even sometimes the producers don't own the full copyright. It belongs even to the clients. And so now when you have this big dog sitting and it's like, you're going to give us this particular right and you're not going to get anything from it, it is either you do that or perhaps your production doesn't get this contract. Or it's either you do that and you don't get this role. Sometimes we find ourselves having to bend with regards to such matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a lack of awareness or a lack of law?
I think it's a lack of law more than it is the lack of awareness, because people know, but now the problem is there's no law to protect you in the event that you are at a position where you're about to, get your copyright taken away for life, and fighting it is just another challenge that you do not know how to do.
We're seeing a lot more, just moving slightly away from this, and of arts being used for now more and more for political activism.
Yes.
Okay. And now it brings a clash, and we're even discussing it 2 weeks ago. There's always that clash between art and politics, because art will always go right there and rub politics the wrong way, and politics will fight back.
Yeah.
Now we are seeing a lot of that emerging again.
Yes.
People like you who are active citizens, and what you're doing is basically just doing the same thing. You're injecting in the political space.
Yes.
What do you see yourself playing a bigger role in this, or do you just see yourselves being a kioo cha jamii and just reflecting and making people just see and they reflect, and whether they take it or not, that's their problem? I mean, I just showed you who you are. Or do you see yourselves playing another role of a call to action?
It can be both, depending on the situation at hand. The main reason as to why definitely politics gets wrapped is the kioo cha jamii issue. I don't think anybody really wants to see themselves being, asked questions and held accountable. But then now, more than it is just being the kioo cha jamii and stuff like that, we saw in situations where that kioo cha jamii that was looking like it was a silent, just mirror reflecting, actually made a call for action. And we will credit any form of activism that took place last year, be it for femicide, be it for the parliamentary, whatever, to the creative industry and social media. Because then now, it is from me seeing Janet Mbogwa post that, oh, this is really bad, or somebody else do this, or Njugush do a skit about this, that you are, or Mushiri translate these things, that you're like, oh, wow, now I understand exactly what is happening. And so now the time has come that people have realized it's not just a silent kioo cha jamii thing. They actually hold the power to control the conversation amongst the people that are following them. Yeah,
I like that. I keep saying that June last year, it forever changed a lot of people. Some people were already shifted, but it kind of forced people to either look at themselves or to completely abandon whatever comfort they had in having conversations and to saying we're going to be vocal. How did it significantly shift your perspective? We've seen your incredible commentary videos. Was that as a result of June, Or was that always there but needed June to like bring it out of you?
I'd say the second option. It had always been there, but like I said before, people are not that attentive, or people seemed like they were not that attentive. Until now, people took the finance bill seriously, and people became aware and lent a listening ear to these matters. It's why, for example, for me, I try as much as possible not to do political videos, because I am mainly a creative economy teacher and all that. But then now, if there's a bill that is affecting the creative economy, it will have to make me become political. And then now when people see that, now they are very alert and aware. Ati umesema imeguza nini? Hey, it could be the mob mentality, hey, this and this is happening, but regardless of how it is working. Yeah.
What's the one thing it forever shifted in you?
I personally lost my cousin. Rex was my cousin. And I think seeing how this particular incident caused so much stir and made people so angry, and people became very alert with regards to these things, it forever made me accept that he did not die in vain. It looked like that then. Obviously, people would have preferred to have him more alive. But then he was the reason that we are here now in terms of these particular conversations. And so for that, I think I always just accept the fact that he had to go for that reason.
I'm so sorry to hear that. So then how do we protect these voices like yours? Because we saw what happened obviously with Butere Girls, and we were asking a lot of people who came here, okay, then how do we protect the creative space from the kind of intimidation that we saw witnessed? What are your thoughts on how we can, because maybe right now there's somebody who has a message to say, but they're like, hey, I don't know that I need that kind of attention coming my way.
Yeah.
So how do we make that space safer for more voices to be heard?
I would still go back to policy.
Okay.
And as much as sad as it seems, because policy is very heavily dependent on politics, but I think it might be a very difficult thing, or might look like a very difficult thing to do now, but then sometimes some of these things you get in it for the long run. So if we start dealing with the problem that we are having right now, which is the policy, I think in the next few years, then the people are going to be well protected in terms of that. I always admire a sector like the media or LSK. You can't touch their person just like that. Like the kind of noise that it makes, the kind of attention that it gets and gives, it just gives these people sometimes a bit of more courage to be able to do some of the daring things. So for now, I think the major thing would be, first of all, policy, and also just heavily dependent on digital activism. Yeah.
So a lot's happening.
Yeah.
And even now, there's still all this political talk and the politics of the day, and the conversation whether are people happy, are people unhappy? How do you know? How can you tell whether people are happy or unhappy? What's your feeling? Are people happy or unhappy?
People are not happy; they're unhappy.
They're unhappy.
Yeah.
With the politics of the day.
Yeah.
What's your measure?
I think it's a complete reflection of how the political world is treating them. If you treat somebody in a way that makes them feel like they need to stand up and defend themselves, they'll always be in a position of being angry and unhappy. And that's where I think the government has put many of us at this particular state as a country and as a nation. It is coming up with these policies that don't make sense, trying to push things that don't make sense. It's like testing. Ni kama kujaribu kuchokoza nyuki. Tuguze tuache. And then now the people right now are not joking about that kuguza kuacha. Kitambo, they would have been like, me, I need involved. But then if you looked at perhaps the feedback that people gave when they had proposed the extension of the term, you'll realize people are not joking anymore. It's not that funny. Yeah.
But does that cut across the country? There are those that argue that, well, this is, it's a small group of people who are very vocal because they have access to social media, so they speak and they amplify their voice on social media. But you get out of that social media space and out of these urban spaces, and that noise not just dies down, it doesn't exist.
I would beg to disagree. I think it depends on what matters are being talked about. Because if you looked at the public participation that was there, the day that one, they wanted to remove Gachagua and they're involving the people, and two, the day that they wanted to extend and propose a bill for extension of the term, you'll realize even that world that you think is not involved is not silent. The ground was angry, and I think the media was doing a very good job at capturing people in different venues across the country. And it was a boda person, it was a mama mboga, it was a passerby. It wasn't a Nairobi person that had an iPhone or was eating KFC. It was everywhere. The people were angry. So that makes you realize perhaps when we started, or when perhaps the Gen Z started, it looked like a Gen Z thing. Until now they realize it's actually not. This thing involves all of us, and if we keep quiet, it's going to affect us. And so now people are more politically aware.
Okay. Are they doing anything more with this awareness of theirs? Because, yeah, we have all this awareness, we're making a lot of noise. Is there anything more that you feel that people are doing?
People are...
And then?
I think even just giving that feedback is already people doing something. Because I do remember when the Senate was crashing, because the feedback they were getting from just 200,000 emails was enough to crash the system, because they've never gotten such feedback with regards to rejecting a bill. So people are getting now equipped with regards to knowing how to fight these things in the position that they can by sending feedback and all that. Now we can only just wait and see 2027 and see the face of the politics. But many of the people right now are like, ile tabia kukaa kwa nyumba tungoje, tumeona is not really working. Itabidi this time round tujiskume sana. Now it will be very heavily dependent on the candidates that will show up there.
Yeah. You feel like there's some people who are angry, and then you want them to do more?
Moto ya gazeti. You know, Kashai Gazeti, what motto, and then
it simmers.
Just goes, right? Because beyond the noise, what else are we? Are people waiting for 2027 to see the candidates that will come, or are people starting to organize and seek out candidates to go for elections? Are people starting to organize and mobilize and say, this is how we shall make sure that we are participating in the election? I have my ID. I am registered as a voter. I don't have my ID, I am seeking the ID, I am raising the issues of IDs are not available, and so on and so forth. Are you feeling that on the ground?
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Jana,
I feel it in some spaces, and then others I don't. That's why I'm always asking about sustaining the momentum. I get worried. Sometimes I'm like, we need to sustain the momentum. So I feel it in some corners, but not as collectively as I would hope to feel it. But you're saying you feel it, you see it.
Yeah, I feel like it's more. Now, let me tell you, there's no hot content that sells right now like politics. Just to do a political video. And as much as, like I'm saying, be it a mob mentality or whatever, the most important thing is the fact that people are actually listening to you in the first place. That is a very big, significant change in comparison to 2022. So sometimes the change might take a bit longer than we actually expect it to be. We are fighting something that has been existent for so long. By the time we get done with tribal lines, like you've said, it's now generational issues. But then do you realize that slowly by slowly, in a few years, tribal lines might not actually be something that's very defining in Kenya's politics? Yeah.
I like how you've talked about hot content.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to say, because it is. It's almost like it's a trend. And you're like, it's okay, even if that's mob mentality, as long as it's a trend that's working to better educate people. I didn't really look at it that way. Like now the algorithm is all, people are analyzing policies, people are talking about how to vote, how not to vote.
You create political content, it's getting
because my
engagement.
videos for creative economy, you're telling them nice things about the creative economy. They just have your views, Zako of 5,000 Rosafi, but mention bills. I had like 50 Kimbaka Nico, like, oh wow, what is happening, guys? I do not want to get abducted.
So there's more engagement, more
there
shares,
is more engagement,
likes,
more
comments.
shares, more. Yani people are actually very aware.
And I think a lot of people look to people to speak. You realize that, because then you have to ask yourself, okay, I'll speak because what is the cost of silence? What is the cost of silence, Latif, Sybil? What do you think the cost of silence is?
The cost of silence would have been us having the finance bill now. That would have been the cost of silence. The cost of silence would be getting a presidential term for 7 years. That's the cost of silence. And many more things that we are all aware of. Yeah.
I agree. The cost of silence is that it's the ignorance and then the things that happen.
Yeah.
Because there are people who are aware and they know that you don't know.
Yeah.
And they know that you'll do nothing about it. So they'll do things knowing, Janet atafanya, atapiga kelele, by the time Janet ajue, tutakuwa tumepitisha hii kitu. Hata akipiga kelele, itakuwa imeenda.
And even if sometimes it actually inapitishangwa juu ya other distraction and side shows, saizi wanajua tunaona. Like there's a very big difference between now and a few years back where these things tulikuwa tunasikia tu. You're like, oh wow, there's this scandal. Okay, but now
there's somebody said that there's a very big possibility as well of this whole thing also being infiltrated with disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah.
So, just people just come in and they create that misinformation, disinformation. They're basically just diverting your attention.
Yeah.
So you get angry about something. Ati wamesema? Ati wamefanya? You discuss this for a while, and by the time you guys realize that
this was just a distraction.
Haiko ukweli. In fact, you'll be arguing, hapana ilikuwa ukweli. Sybil ndiye alisema hiyo kitu. No, it must have been true. How do you guard against that? Is there any way in which the citizenry can guard against what were just mushane?
That's a very, very difficult space to navigate, to be honest, because now with the social media and the era of going viral, where before people have actually proven facts, it is a very high. So one, I personally as Sybil, what I can control is make sure that in my capacity as a person that is being looked at to spread information, that I do it, one, to the best of my ability with regards to finding out the facts. So like for me, I am so happy, at least I have like a background in law that has enabled me have even other people that are within the same space that are very good at research, and you can be like, ebu niangalilie kama hii bill ni ukweli imefika level gani and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We owe it to ourselves, especially as the people that are actually very active with regards to passing information, to pass the correct information. Now for those ones when hatuwezi kosa zenye tu ni za uongo, they're usually fact checkers that you can do it by as a media lab. It's usually a program where you can check and then you just like try and say, is this correct? Is this information? And sometimes it's too late. It's already too late. Ilishaenda. I think unfortunate as it may seem, sasa inabidi tu sasa ungoje the next wave.
The next one. I want to ask you something with regards to acting.
Yes.
Which in itself is a very powerful tool to also shift conversations and all. Do you feel that we're there as a country where the films or series that we're putting out can also play a role in activating more active citizens? Or do you still think that there's that delicate line between of not wanting to toe that line, let me put it that way, where the movies or the films and the series are still quite more about the tastes of the audience, whether it's a love story, or do you think we're starting to push the boundaries to say we're creating a series that is actually going to reflect what's happening in the country?
I think for the longest time it has been the second option. We've only just been doing, especially for taste, with the audience and stuff like that, because again, you're dependent on their feedback and their engagement for some of your licenses to get renewed and your contracts to get renewed. So that's a very valid reason as to why sometimes they've always stayed aside or not actively engaged in the first option. But then now, if you look at films like Chaguo, I participated, I was one of the actors in the show Chaguo that was coming out just before the elections, and it was talking about elections and political activism with regards to, making the right choice, vote for the right candidate. It's on Netflix. So there are people that are pushing that boundary. It may not be as many compared to the ones that are not, but then for the ones that actually are, we are seeing a few things come up.
Because they also have a heavy influence, right?
Yeah.
I think things like film and cinema can really influence how society perceives an issue. And so I think you anticipate that more of these kinds of things will come out, do you think, in the next 5-10 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to a time when we'll have a show that will be based on perhaps June 25th. or any other time, because now this will be very significant things that even the future generation deserve to watch. I mean, we all like the Nelson Mandela show because they did it and covered his story. So it would be very important for us, and that's a challenge on us as an industry, especially the film industry, to definitely explore such themes and not just focus on whatever we feel is very easy to pick. And you'd look at the example of social media, especially content creators. They are now more actively involved, especially in pushing trends and things that involve politics and just major things that are affecting the country, because that is easy content to do. If for me to be able to shoot this particular thing, if I'm a filmmaker, I'll need maybe licenses, I'll need to hire crew, there's equipment involved. If I'm a content creator and I just want to do a skit on whatever happened, I just need to get perhaps my friends with the resources that I have. Could it be my phone? Could it be a camera? And it's out. So sometimes those are some of the things that make it a bit more difficult with regards to keeping up with the pace of everything that's happening in the country. Yeah.
But it's heading there.
It's heading there.
I mean, just like you say, it's some of these things are like long haul, but we leapfrog. We jump from here to the end of the long haul, and you're already there. Because if you just think about how suddenly, like you said, a lot of content now has a lot of connotations or reflection of what's happening in the country politically, governance-wise, the mood of the nation and all, and not just creating, funny, comical content on tribes and how we view each other, how Atiawa, Wakamba wanafanyanga hivi, just ended. Now it's just every new day, Njogosh will create some silly thing and you can see this guy is actually reflecting the news of the day. And the others will also create the same. So it's now seeing long form content coming up the same way. Do we have a series that is reflecting what's going on in the country, or that's reflecting what has happened in the country, that's actually capturing it and going on with it? So these are it's the journey that we are making. It's gonna come. It's gonna take a while. What will it take for us to leapfrog?
Mi akintakufa tuna policy.
Hapo.
Because having a chance to look at both sides, I think that's the major gap that is there. Because now, even with regards to policy, it even affects even the licenses that we have. It affects the taxes that we pay. It affects the international investors that we get. It affects how people are going to market this show, how people are going to distribute this show. It cuts across every single department. It's very hard to speak about any change that you want to make without involving policy. It's very hard. Otherwise, because it is now a need, and then now once policy is set in place, now it can be able to push for that need to be met. But then now without it, it will always just be, we need to do this, guys, we need to do this. But without the resources, that's why I'm saying people realize politics is very important. Without having policies or anything that involves politics backing you up, it's very hard to do anything.
Policy and courage. I think courage hapo kwa policy as well. I want to see if we can just sample some feedback. There's been a very big conversation here on YouTube about happiness. We have somebody here, my prince, in Dubai they have Minister of Happiness. Maybe we should have one. Still Mike Thorne is saying maybe Minister of Sadness here, because where happiness iko kweli. Somebody else is saying, no, what are you saying? We need it. I would rather have the sadness ministry. People are unhappy, but the good thing is we're waiting for the day to have too big to rig anyway. Smallest ever. Today I joined my fellow fixers on Team Earphones. I'm absolutely vibing with a lively conversation. That's very interesting. Ministry of Happiness. The reason I want to bring it up, Sybil, is because I also want to speak to the state of just mental health, even for creatives, even for artists and for young people. And just your thoughts on an individual level. What do you think we need to do to address the mental health, I think, crisis in this country? How does it also affect, say, creatives differently from how it may affect other people?
Let's start from the fact that I don't know if it was just happening to me, but there was a time when the political weight was just too much, especially that time for June, July. You are feeling so heavy. Even going to work was such a task. Even just engaging. Kuona news unachoka. Because every day ni frustration, to be honest. And with regards to that, then we have to acknowledge that there kulitokea a mental health crisis because of the political situation that was happening in the country. And now, even with regards to creatives, it's a time now to try and express yourself through art in the best way that you can try to heal yourself and the world. So some people were getting into music, some people were perhaps making films that are reflecting whatever it is that they're doing. People are doing poems about them, people are doing spoken word about them. We have a show like Too Early for Birds that is giving you a chance to actually go enjoy a political content and also kasirika in the process. And by the end of it all, mna realize, guys, we have a long way to go, but we are here right now and we have to do this. So art can definitely be used with regards to helping the mental crisis and the mental health crisis if more creatives express themselves through their art and if more people engage in art. Yeah.
Hapa kwa hii ministry, do you think it's something that would, for
Ministry
those
of Happiness.
Yeah, for people who are laughing, it's a real thing. I think it's in Dubai. They have a Ministry of Happiness, and they were using it to try and come. Yeah, Minister of State in the United Arab Emirates Cabinet, Minister of State for Happiness, Her Excellency Ohud bint Khalfan. And I think the whole idea was to try and make sure. I can hear Phil is also telling us something. What's that, our director?
There's a happiness club by Kiraito Murungi.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it addressing the issues it's supposed to?
Yeah, but then he went and studied, and he talks about, just studying happiness and what happiness is all about, and what it means. And there are several countries that have Ministry of Happiness. Even India has a Ministry of Happiness. Even Bhutan has a Ministry of Happiness.
It's hard to measure, though, but
Denmark.
Yeah, Denmark would have one. Denmark are always in the top 10 countries that are the happiest. But, I think this conversation ties into what we're talking about because, happiness index of these countries, what is it that's working? In a lot of these countries, what's working is what Sybil is harping on about. The policies are working, whether it's access to education, access to healthcare, even access to basic needs. In these countries, the Denmarks, the Finlands, the Icelands, there's a certain measure, and that's why they're able to produce, citizens who are able to thrive. Yeah. But now, where we are?
No. I think we need one because see, the Ministry of Happiness is looking at the well-being of the citizens. So it's putting focus on, are we addressing the well-being of our citizens? Wellness. Are we addressing those things? Even if it's not a ministry, just an institution that just takes care of the well-being and happiness of the citizens. Pointing those issues out to other arms of government. So people are unhappy with this. People are feeling burdened with this. You need to come up with policies and programs that address this aspect and the other aspect. That's what the Ministry of Happiness are all about.
I don't think
it's not to celebrate that people are happy. No. No.
It's to address the pain points.
It's to address the pain points to make people happy.
Okay, it won't work in Kenya.
Why?
It won't work because first you need ministries that understand their mandate. Number one, Siko Ubaya, is that unfortunately we've had a very recent sad incident where the incoming minister gaslit an entire demographic called women and said that they're getting killed or dying by femicide because they're looking for money. So I think it starts with having ministries that actually understand this is the mandate of what we do here. Then once we understand, then we can execute. I think our ministries need a reintroduction to the job description.
So then we start with that. Do you understand? We can make you the minister. Okay.
I understand the pain points. Even Sybil could be the minister because we understand the pain points.
Minister for enjoyment.
Minister for enjoyment. I think in the
happiness is not at now. People are happy, so therefore we have a ministry of happiness. It's a ministry that ensures that one of the critical factors that we need to have in a country is the well-being of the citizens. And the well-being, happiness is that. Happiness is not sherehe. Happiness is that. It's well-being. Are you feeling a certain level of fulfillment with the status of your life and what needs to happen to create that feeling, and that's what creative arts do.
That's true.
Right? They try and bring that to us. They calm down your mind and all. dealing with mental wellness. That's it.
And to be honest,
And your ministry, the
Yeah.
one you wanted to create called Creative Arts.
yeah,
That's it.
economy.
Creative economy.
Yes.
Call it that.
Wake up in Espia. Ingiza.
Call it that. Creative economy and well-being.
Yes. I think tunaangalia hizi vitu sana. It goes down to even as small things as even memes, man. That is creativity. Sometimes the creativity that goes to making a meme, unaangalia tu, you just wonder. It's what were you thinking by the time you were coming up with this meme, with this reels, with this what? And that you see right now is what is controlling even the businesses out here, because corporates are using reels, corporates are using influencers, they're using these funny things to pass messages, to try and get an audience, to get consumers. The impact that small thing called social media, or big thing, depending on how you look at it, has, it may infiltrate even all other businesses right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If policies never change, Sybil, God forbid, would you still create?
I would. I would still create, because regardless of whatever is happening, I think by the time you find yourself being a creative, you can't run away from it. Utatafuta, it will still call you one or another. And for me, it's a space that I enjoy. It's a space that gives me that mental, whatever, happiness that we're trying to look for
In a minister.
in a minister. And it's just a space that has so much to give, man. Regardless, because despite all that, I'm telling you, you should just meet artists. When you just go even for maybe this spoken word things and even just theater, people don't even look like the problems that they're going through, really. Because when you're in that space, all that you put aside, we just have fun for whatever it is. We consume, we learn, we go home. One or another, it has added me a day, 2 days.
It gives you a release, and then it gives the audience something to think about. And I think that's the double beauty about being in a creative space, being a creative who also has conversations that are either politically or socially conscious, is that everybody wins. You win because that's a release, and the audience wins because it leaves them asking, hey, kwani your bill? How did I not interrogate that? So I think that's a win.
So this ministry, we were to create this ministry, and you said we can break it down into how many? Seven different industries. What would those 7 be?
We have audiovisual that has film. We have
audiovisual has film.
Okay. Audiovisual, anything that you can listen to and watch.
Okay.
Of course, we have audio on its own. That's just purely music. We have publishing that is now focusing on the distribution of these things. We have events. We have, of course, events. With events, you know what that means, the converging of people. We have new media.
So events is like bringing people together to consume the content. Okay.
Or even just whatever, concerts. And then you have the new media, which now involves social media, technology, using all that space. How many have I gotten to?
You've said 5.
We have design. And then now we also have I don't know if it's literal works, that now covers books. Oh, but not publishing. Publishing is a mixture. It's different distribution. Okay.
What would be so hard in getting this done?
Your leaders, man.
Which leaders?
Ama ni kwa ministry yangu. Mi kwa ministry yangu. Now I'll first of all establish a board. In that board, I'll make sure every industry is represented, because that's one of the major challenges we have. We have people sitting in these boards that are supposed to be for creatives that are not creative, have never been a creative any time of their life. Let's say Murkomen, youth and sports. How are you going to help us? What do you know about this particular industry? Youth. Ashaikuwa, but sasa walikuwa kwa creative sector. You know, and so now once you already have that, a functional board that has representatives, then now you have these specific industries obviously divided into the different sectors. Because in as much as, let's say, kuna design, hapo kuna fashion, hapo kuna graphics, so they're still separate ones. And then now also those ones, now they can have their small associations and stuff like that, that now look at the matters that are affecting these small bodies with regards to taking them up to the next body. And like, for example, now actors, we have Kenya Actors Guild that is now back. It was a bit silent for a while, but now it's back. And now we feel some of these issues that we are having, at least there's someone to listen to them. There's a starting point. we're coming up with a structure for it, a work plan, and see what we can do to streamline already just the acting sector, which now falls under the audiovisual. So now when we combine with another sector that is within the audiovisual space, let's say the camera department, let's say the production, let's say the directorship, and then now we come together, then we have already formed a very big force with regards to audiovisual. Now put 7 of those into that board.
It's a very good recommendation.
Yeah.
Entry point.
Sounds like it's flowing.
It sounds like it's flowing,
Yeah.
Well thought out, integrating all of these elements, which separately are powerful, but even can overlap to create even something even more impactful. It's a good flow. Happiness is also within all this. I don't think it needs its own department. It's aside. There's another critical societal issue that I think has been in our faces for several years, but especially more over the last year and a half, 2 years. Femicide.
Yes.
And of course, even in and around that, issues around sexual harassment, something that you've spoken about before. Let's take a listen briefly to a video that you did and then come back and have a discussion about what we really need to do to resolve this issue. Let's play that video.
So let's talk about sexual harassment, especially in the creative sector, and our terms are mainly contract-based. So what happens in this case, if a company wants to safeguard the safety of its employees in such cases, they give them a sexual harassment policy, which is given before anyone begins employment, and they sign it alongside their contracts. This sexual harassment policy simply states that the company is going to ensure that nobody among their employees is going to get harassed in any way, which includes sexually. And also the company will take charge of ensuring that they operate on a zero tolerance policy on sexual harassment matters, which means that any time that anyone reports these things, they're going to investigate, and they're going to investigate promptly. These matters are going to be taken seriously, and they're going to be handled with confidentiality. This ensures the victim and also the perpetrator don't undergo stigma, and these matters are handled in a more responsible fashion. So now, when we come to the sexual harassment policy, the companies should ensure that before people begin employment, they undergo training. They can call someone to come on set, take them through what sexual harassment includes, the mechanisms that are there to report these particular matters, to ensure that everybody understands. Another thing is they could put these things in handbooks and all through the employment setup to make sure that this information sticks amongst its employees. And this is not based on any sexuality. Now let's go to the complaint mechanisms that are put in place. Among the major things we need to consider is that the complaint mechanisms could be tied to the contract that you sign.
So have the training, have the manual. There's so many organizations that they're awake to it more now, but I feel like in many ways they've tried to do it. It's almost like something is still missing because people have carried out trainings, people have handbooks on it, people are aware.
They have HR policies.
They have HR policies on the same. I know you were speaking specifically to the creative industry, so let me not mix that with the corporate world. So have those things been considered in the creative space, and if not, why?
In the recent projects that I've gotten into, we've had sexual harassment policy training where we start and there's a person that's coming to take you through. Sometimes it looks like nonsense, to be honest. Sometimes people ignore these things because you assume you know until the day it will come and you have to answer to perhaps somebody's complaint with regards to a sexual harassment, a thing that you did, perhaps a bad joke that you made. And then now you'll be everywhere scrambling and looking for, oh my God, that's not what happened. So these policies are there to make sure that there's a fallback. Because just based on how our society is, it is completely very hard to even prove these things. The nature of sexual harassment sometimes is the fact that it happens in private, and in most times it's just going to be the victim's words against the perpetrator's word. But then now, at least with the sexual harassment policy put in place, in as much as sometimes it feels like, oh my God, it will not be there to have every evidence at hand to show for it, but hey, there's a place where you can report this. Any information that you have with regards to this, we shall look into it. At least when there's that. Imagine if there was no method to complain. Imagine if there were no courts that you could report someone to because they maybe have your debt, they have this. It would be more chaotic. So people might have not fully embraced having the training every day and all these things. But like we keep saying, also like every other thing, including mental health and even the creative sector right now, it's a conversation that's happening. And then once it already kickstarts, then we can be able to see the results more efficiently. Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of creatives as well using their space to talk about these issues.
Yeah.
You've highlighted it in terms of a sexual harassment policy. We're right now seeing a lot of creatives as we speak, talking a lot about femicide, and some of them are using it in a creative way.
Yeah.
There's one that's talking about using lipstick and red lipstick, etc. But I think the message lands, right? And so how important is it then to also have this combined voice, the same one that's injecting on governance issues, to also speak to issues around sexual harassment and femicide?
I think what we can basically do is, like we're saying, there's already a voice, and because of digital activism, it is in that share every day. It is in that share. It is that point where you see this thing till you don't want to see it anymore. You know, when people learned about mental health, and now, for lack of a better word, some people just misuse the word depression. Some people just misuse the word, oh my God, I'm bipolar. But it shows you one thing. I have ADHD, like I can't concentrate on one thing. You see, but then now, in as much as sometimes it seems like it's a joke, you're exaggerating, it shows you that 5 years ago, the conversation wasn't
people
like
wouldn't
that.
come out to say
People wouldn't come out. So for those ones who are benefiting from it, it's a good thing that these things are everywhere all the time. And so now even #MeToo started slowly, but then now the impact that it has had, in as much as kuna wenye may benefit on the other side with regards to maybe false information, we cannot disregard that. It's part of society and life. But then the majority have also benefited because they've gotten a platform to be able to complain. So even if it matters to do with sexual harassment and femicide and all these things, the more we keep pushing for them, people will hear them till they'll not have anything else to do except hear them. And then now they'll just need to look for a way to address it. Yeah.
Flood them.
Flood them
more and
till
more
they
content
can't.
on such. More and more content on things like on GBV as well. I've just remembered I've seen a quote somewhere of Dr. Nancy Baraza, who is chairing the task force, a technical working team on GBV and femicide, saying we should get to a level where now children are taught GBV just like they're being taught math and English and Swahili in school, right? So it becomes one of those things that you get to know. So we see in very many cases teachers teaching children about how their private parts and how private what privacy in private parts means. But then now can't consent. Now just taking it further. I'm talking about this is violence, this is gender-based violence, this is sexual violence, this is harassment, this is right, this is wrong, and infusing that into CBC throughout as part of the education growing up. And I think as well, the creative economy, the creative side has a big role to play in that. In just expanding that awareness.
I think people underestimate children.
Oh yeah.
People think children don't know, and you'd be surprised at how much children knows. Look at your child when they go to school and the songs they come singing back, and then you'll realize that the songs that are trending in Kenya are big because the children know them. It's not the other way around. If you can pass by somewhere and you can hear children singing any song, like which one is currently in their mouths? This one for BN Mpishi. That has Matata. The fact that people are doing dances, challenges, shows you it has already gotten to the ground. And that's the thing. So once you already infiltrate, especially the education system with regards to such matters, then you already start teaching them from a very young age. And you know, these people maybe turning back to CBC, it's not something that just happened overnight. They realized for a while there's a sector that has been ignored. And I think it's time for us to change and also capture it so that in the next 10, 5, 15 years, these children are now representing the conversation will be very different at their tables. Haitakuwa ile eti umefanya engineering, umefanya law. It's like, no, me, I did music and I just did this and stuff. And that already starts showing them from a very young age what you'd want to do and what you'd want
goes
to
into character unprovoked.
Yeah, sio easy eti when unamaliza kwanza ndio unaanza kuona, oh, by the way, actually guys, I knew how to run. Let me go back and try that.
And start running. You are brought up to run.
Yes.
You're taught to run.
That would
You
be
are
good.
going to school to learn how to run.
Yes, unaona hata wanataka kufanya maths siku compulsory imeleta shida.
Yeah. Ni watu wanajifanya tu anyway.
I think she's already answered this question. I wanted to ask, what would a fully liberated creative sector look like? Would it? I know you've talked about the 7
industry.
different. How do we fully liberate the creative sector?
How do we fully liberate the creative sector? The creatives getting benefits off of it, and in result giving themselves fully to you. You'll see an industry that works, like for example the American entertainment industry. Sometimes we don't like comparing ourselves to such, but we're just using them as a benchmark. Among the people that have the most influences are people that are in the creative spaces, are people that are in sports, are people that are in these things. Those are the people that we listen to. I don't know a USA politician probably, but I definitely know Jay-Z, I definitely know LeBron, I know Beyonce, I know Rihanna. So now, once these people already are getting the full benefits of a fully functional and working creative economy, then even in return, whatever they give to the industry at large is something that is worth being appreciated. But then once you frustrate this sector, freedom of expression, wacha, inayo wacha, pesa nayo kidogo wacha, you're frustrating the whole country without you knowing. Because I'm telling you right now, the creative sector has infiltrated every space, including businesses. They're now doing their adverts through social media. Sasa mkiumiza pale mnaumiza consumer, and corporates will not sit down and watch their money go down the drain.
And also, if it's fully liberated, it speaks to something you've just mentioned, the ability to express even political views without some of the heavy repercussions that we saw. For example, Butere Girls. I know that there's a line between or is there actually censorship and expression, when it should be implemented, when it shouldn't? But I think one of the things that would liberate the creative economy is also being able to liberate the messaging. On what we're talking about, governance, leadership. I think that also makes it fully liberated.
Indeed. I see it becoming if everybody views it as a profession, then that's a big step that it has taken. For a long time, like you've said many times this morning, is people have not seen creatives as professionals. And even for a long time, those who are in the creative sector space were not treating themselves as professionals. But thanks to the fact that now you can be fully employed Monday to Friday, 30 days a month, and you're actually waking up and you have a job every day. You're busy. You finish this, you're going into another one. You're actually doing like 4 different projects concurrently, and it's all of you, the entire value chain. Then now it becomes a job, it becomes a profession. And we have a lot of things to thank for these ones. We have, of course, our local media. We've got things like MultiChoice and all this. The fact that we have a lot of content that's coming out, it's helping. It's helping in that. I think we just need more and more people, such as yourself, to keep behaving like this is my job.
That means,
I'm not. Me worked.
I wish someone would come to set and see the work, the people that are involved even behind the scenes, just for that one scene to work. Take your parents one time and they'll, mnafanyanga hii kazi yote. Now they're like, oh wow, so it's not just going to act. It is a very, very difficult space to be in.
True. Let all of them, everybody who turns up to work in a film set, a documentary set, in a music studio, in publishing and writing a book, and let everybody just wake up and themselves feel, this is my job. This is not, stopgap. It's not a stopgap. It's not a side gig. It's not, the thing that I do and then I have to go and look for something else to do. Get that to that level, then that voice will be unshakable.
I like that, will be unshakable. I know we're coming towards the end. I wanted to ask you, when the lights fade and the applause fades and everything is quiet, what do you want to remain, Sybil? On an individual level, what does Sybil want to be remembered for? And also society-wise, when it comes to being an active citizen, the lights will go. These trends might come and go, by the way.
Definitely.
What should remain?
For me as an individual, I think you've just asked a question that I have been going back and forth about this week. It's purpose. And I was just looking at one time I was having a conversation with a very good friend of mine, and he was like, what do you think is your purpose? And I struggled to say communication because I didn't think it made sense being a purpose. You try to look for, you know, kitu kisema watu watashtuka, you know.
Kitu kuna kizungu.
Kitu kuna yani something very, you know.
Heavy word,
like inspire, you know. But then now I just said communication, and it's like, that's right. And I sat in it for a moment, and I realized everything that I've been doing has always been leading me to just communicate. Any ile mdomo walimu waliniambia ni kiherehere can finally become something very positive, guys. So yeah, I think for me the main purpose that I have when everything comes and goes is communicate. Now you just have to make sure that you look at what you're communicating, you guard whatever it is that you're saying, so that you can be able to get the full benefits of the messages that you're passing. Mimi kama tu messenger, I'll always be here to definitely communicate and educate and create more awareness. That for me is more significant and more impactful than trying to fix the damage after it has already occurred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fix the damage after it has already occurred.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful. Sybil Collette, asante sana for joining us.
Yes.
She is an actor and an active citizen.
Yes, and my page is Orange Matters.
Orange Matters.
Yeah, because orange is the color of creativity, so the creative economy matters.
Hey,
Nice.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for tuning in and joining us today on Fixing the Nation. It's one conversation at a time. Tomorrow we'll be back at 6 a.m. with more conversations. Every new day, we hope to push the envelope, to move the needle to any other. Can put all those in the list together. Yeah. But see you. Have a lovely day. Your world ladies coming up next?
Yes, they should be.
They should be coming up next. So stick around for Your World coming up next.
Bye.
Nilisikia ukiambia guest mwingine ni favorite speaker wako. Kwani mimi hutaki kuniambia hivyo?
Ati yeye ni favorite speaker.